This is the story of a boy who was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
The following program was provided by an independent producer, solely responsible for its content. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program series are solely those of the host and guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Brainstorm, bringing great minds and ideas together, exploring a wide variety of opportunities, achieving academic excellence, using the latest technology, government's impact, preparing for 21st century careers, parenting and health issues, topics shaping tomorrow. Brainstorm with Lisa Willever, bringing great minds and ideas together.
Hi, welcome to Brainstorm. I'm Lisa Willever, and today we're talking about pleasure reading. And I have two guests with me from very different worlds that intersect on this topic. I have Dr. James Fazzone. You are an educator, an administrator, a former mayor. What else am I forgetting?
That was good.
Is that good? Okay. And I have Angelo Onofre, the Mercer County prosecutor. So I know people may be wondering, why do we have an educator and a prosecutor, a member of law enforcement, for a topic called pleasure reading? But I think it's very interesting how they intersect. Before we talk about it, let's learn a little bit more about our topic. For a long time, books were an expensive commodity and not enjoyed by the masses. For those fortunate enough to have books, reading is a relaxing, leisurely activity. Modern life, however, is hectic and exhausting, and often leaves little time for pleasure reading. And with TVs, movies, apps, and video games, books can often lose their luster. Reading for many kids has now become a chore, but at what cost? It turns out pleasure reading is not only a relaxing activity, it is an indicator of future success in life. Yep, today the books you read will play a role in who you become tomorrow. Okay, so gentlemen, you both, well, before we begin, you have a very interesting history between the two of you. I believe you, Jim,
Yes,
were Angelo's teacher.
exactly.
Okay,
And I'm hoping your viewers think I look way too young to be Angelo's teacher.
Yeah,
but-
well, yeah, they're wondering which one was the teacher,
Yeah,
right?
I'm hoping.
Okay, there you go. So now it was high school, elementary school. Where did this happen?
High school, Steiner High School.
Steiner High School. So what a success story. This is all because of you, right?
Yeah, probably. But I always knew Angelo was going to be successful. He was the same guy then. He is now. Honest, sincere, hardworking, and just an all-around good guy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I just have less hair now.
You both have pretty good heads of hair, so I think, knock on wood, guys.
No, Dr. Fazzone was a great teacher, and he was always one of those educators that really cared about his students, as well as being a football coach. He always cared about his players to make sure that we succeeded.
That's wonderful. Now, when we're talking about pleasure reading, a lot of times people don't really understand what that is, and it's different than when you're in school and you're assigned to read a book. Pleasure reading is what's kind of beyond that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I think pleasure reading for children is pretty similar to pleasure reading for adults. You like to choose a book that you've heard about, choose a book that you like, choose a particular genre, choose a subject that you would like to read as a student. And there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of positive things that come from pleasure reading. So we like the children to be able to go to a bookstore or go to the library, choose a book, pick it up and read it. If they don't like it, they can choose something else.
Okay, so now why is that so important, the pleasure reading aspect? You know, there are people who may say, if they're reading in school, they're reading the assigned books, isn't that enough? Why is pleasure reading so much different?
Well, I think when you're pleasure reading, you can gain a lot of things from the book. If it's fiction, you can learn about the characters. You can live vicariously through the characters. You can learn about conflict resolution, how to resolve conflicts. We talk about all of the conflicts in literature. You have man versus man, man versus nature, man versus himself, man versus society. So you read through these stories, and the author usually has a message, and there is a stream of research which indicates that children who pleasure read are better at conflict resolution than children who do not pleasure read.
Yeah. Well, that would tie right into you.
Well, I also think that it's a chance for the young people to expand their horizons and expand their minds. You know, a lot of times the stuff that you read in school may not be of particular interest, but if you can continue that pleasure reading, whether it's the fiction or whether it's the biography about someone that you may be interested in, I mean, I think that really does help to open the students' horizons. I mean, I can always remember, you know, when I was in school, whenever the Scholastic book van came, and you used to be able to go to the book fair, that was always such a big deal. I mean, we'd read, you know, all of the, you know, typical books in school, but I used to love to buy sports books and the sports biographies.
Yes.
And, you know, reading the newspaper, which is another lost art, which can also be pleasure reading. But I really just think that exposing you to new ideas, exposing you to new things, and really expanding your horizons is the real benefit of pleasure reading.
Now, you're both well aware that I write children's books, and that one of the series that I write is the Nikki Fifth books.
Yes.
And grown from that series is the Nikki Fifth Foundation, and you've both been instrumental in some of our Code Read initiatives. And that's basically to bring books into the hands of children who otherwise don't have them. Something very interesting happened. You were the acting county prosecutor, and then you became official. And we were there the night that you were sworn in and you gave a speech. And part of your speech as the county's top law enforcer was about books. And it was about reading. And I think you really got everybody's attention that night. Do you want to tell us why you added that?
Sure. And actually it was based on a conversation that you and I had. That I believe the statistic was that in suburban environments, for every child, there's 17 books in the household.
Age appropriate.
Age appropriate books.
For each kid.
But in urban environments, it's one book per 100 students.
Actually, it's now 300.
300.
One
Wow.
book for every 300 students.
Wow.
So, you know, you have to take a second to wrap your mind around that. And that's part of the reasons my executive, you know, I'm the executive director, my assistant executive director, Iris Hutchinson, we're both moms, and we both came upon this statistic, and that was kind of the impetus to start the foundation, because it's such an unlevel playing field. And we knew that reading has such an impact on the kids for learning about other people, for traveling when you can't leave the city that you live in, but you can travel through the books.
Sure.
But you know, we knew that this was going to be something good, so we've probably given out, with your office's help and with your help, we've given out probably almost 250,000 books so far.
Wow.
You know, what we've done with the foundation, and we've done it with teachers directly, classroom sets, but we've also done it going to schools and letting kids pick books that they can keep. You know, we did one at your school recently. Tell me about the impact it has on kids who don't have books at home to be able to have 2 or 3 books that are now their own books to keep.
Yeah, and I think we should even point out the research indicates that pleasure reading may be the single most important factor in student achievement. So if we
Say
don't
that again. That is
pleasure reading, the San Diego Office of Education reported that pleasure reading may be the single most important factor in student achievement. So if you take books away from someone and they can't read, you know, based on the research, what does that do to the child's learning? It's just going to be negative. But if we can give children books, because remember, some of the motivational factors of pleasure reading are book ownership, seeing people reading, hearing about books. But if those books aren't around, then all of those things being absent are going to put a kid in a situation where there's nothing for him to read. I know when we were younger, we read comic books, and that was the technology of the time. even whether we're talking about the suburbs or we're talking about the inner city, books aren't necessarily what children go to. As adults, we have to take the children to the books. If they don't have the wherewithal to purchase the books, I think it's good for us to bring the books to them. If we do have the wherewithal, though, even in the suburbs, well, children won't they don't typically ask to go to Barnes & Noble. They don't typically ask to go to the library. But as adults, if we bring them there, the research indicates that they like reading as much as they like any other activity. And I can tell you the students in our school were smiling ear to ear. Each of them got 2 books. They couldn't have been any more excited about it. They were showing me the books. They were showing each other. They were showing the parents. So book ownership is a huge plus. But books are not cheap. You know, and I go with my family to Barnes & Noble, buy a new book. One book can be $40. I think it's well worth it, but everyone doesn't have the resources, and that's why I think what Angelo supporting the initiative, Code Read, and having his own initiatives for pleasure reading are just a great thing.
And there's really a lot of great stuff going on in the area. When we went to the Martin Luther King School that Dr. Fazzone's at, that was all spearheaded by a 17-year-old, Phil Sapienza, who did this as his Eagle Scout project, and he collected over 4,200 books.
Amazing.
That was amazing.
To provide to that school. And really the other great thing that's going on was something that you mentioned that day too, Lisa, was that at the fire stations throughout the city of Trenton, they have Code Read stands. And a child can go in and take a book and read it and then bring it back, or even if they don't, they still have a book. And I think when Dr. Fazzone said, that they were showing them the book and you know how excited they were, I think that's really the pride of ownership, and something that's going to be theirs and something that they can escape into. And to kind of get away from, I mean, I find it myself where, you know, with the things that I deal with every day, kind of at the end of the day, I like to read that pleasure book. Yeah. And it's not a legal book, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, not a law book, really.
No. And I think it's the same with the kids, that they can take that time at the end of the day to read about something that may interest them, about an experience they may want to have, whether it's travel or a hero of theirs. And it's a great thing for them.
You brought up the firehouse libraries. One of the reasons we did that is in the city of Trenton, there were 5 libraries.
Yes.
And 8 years ago, 4 of the 5 libraries were shuttered in a city that's a capital city in the United States of America with 85,000 people living there. And it was reduced to 1 library that most of these kids didn't have access or transportation to get to. So my husband is a chief in the fire department, and we thought, how can we kind of provide a remedy, especially in the summer, because these children now, they could get books during the school year. In the summer, they have no access to books. So the whole thought behind it was, there's firehouses in their libraries. Let's strategically select some and set up little mini firehouse libraries. And that was, again, another Eagle Scout. That was Patrick Quinn from Hamilton, who created 3 beautiful red bookcases with magazine shelves in the front so the books faced out, and shelves in the back, and they're gorgeous. Damn. And these books created not just a reading experience, but they're an avenue for them to meet the heroes that work in their neighborhoods, so that they can come into the firehouse and not just pick out a book, they get to talk to the firefighters. And I think overall it's been a great experience for the kids, but also for the firefighters. And I think Trenton is not the only place in the United States of America where there are a lack of libraries, lack of books, lack of opportunity and access for children. So that hopefully maybe gives somebody else an idea of a way to remedy it for their area.
And I think that's a very interesting point. The other thing with the libraries being closed and only the 1 branch open now, that kids from one part of town, it may not necessarily be safe for them to travel there because of gang or neighborhood disputes that are going on. But what is in every neighborhood in most of the cities? There's that firehouse. So to be able to have the firehouse there, it's a safe place for the kids to go. It really can help the kids, as you said, talk to a fireman. Maybe that helps inspire them toward a career.
And almost like a mentor.
Exactly.
Yeah. We are going to take a break right now, and we will come back with some more really valuable thoughts on pleasure reading and its value. So join us in a few moments. We'll be right back.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Brainstorm. We are talking about pleasure reading and its impact on children today. And with me, I have Dr. James Fazzone, again, educator, teacher, coach, former mayor, very well-rounded. And I have Angelo Onifrey. You are the Mercer County prosecutor in Mercer County, New Jersey. And the reason I have you both here today is because we're talking about the impact of reading on children. So not just as students, but basically as citizens, and how that can help your job. I feel like a lot of times people think the police are supposed to prevent every crime. And I think a lot of that we don't realize starts with families, and it starts in the home, and the activities and the things that we raise our children with. And books, I mean, books, even if you don't have a lot of money, if you can get a book, if you can get to a library, it can make such a big impact. Do you see what you're doing right now, you know, combining law enforcement and literacy together? Do you see a great future for that?
I hope so, and I remain optimistic about it. I think one of the things is to just show the community that we care, and that we're not just arresting. Myself and several of my predecessors have all said the same thing. We are never going to arrest or prosecute our way out of a problem. And I think by starting with education and by reading, that's something that really does help to open the students and the young people up to new horizons and new beginnings. As a kid, I loved to read. I mean, I was always outside playing, but I love that time coming in and being able to read. And I think that if we can just start educating the kids, and, you know, whether it's a story about conflict resolution, I think Dr. Fazzone might talk about a little bit, or, you know, a biography of Martin Luther King, or, you know, people who have made a difference in the world, that can be very inspirational.
Would you like
you know, I remember when I used to read comic books when I was, I guess, from elementary school, even into high school. I remember I sent a letter to Stan Lee. They used to have a column, and he didn't print my letter, but he sent a card back to me. Jim, keep up the great work, Stan Lee. But again, the comic books for us in those days were the technology. I think we should keep in mind that pleasure reading is an excellent activity from toddlers all the way up to college and adults, and it can be a family activity. You don't have to just limit yourself to, and everybody will, I think all of your readers will know the benefits of putting a child on your knee, reading the book to them, how much the children enjoy it. But as they get to the middle school years, there are a lot of great authors, yourself included, that are writing books now for children. And for the longest time, I don't think there were as many authors. Before Harry Potter came out, it was a little bit of a struggle. There were good books, but there weren't as many, I don't think, as there are now. And then as you get get into the teenage years, books you can recommend. I know when I was teaching at high school, some of the kids would come to me, which book you like, and I like Piers Anthony, so some of the football players would, get Piers Anthony books and read them, and we'd have discussions about some of the characters. But pleasure reading is just such a great activity, something that can be good for families, and again, taking that trip to the bookstore, taking that trip to the library, those are all positive things. And there are just so many benefits that you can get from not only student achievement, but conflict resolution, learning about other people, seeing how conflicts are developed. Even when you go back to, and again, Marvel is now, and as well as DC, has turned into movies more than, and I go to all those movies as well. But again, tying movies in with books, having that as the activity, discussing those, and there's always some type of a conflict in there, whether it's Spider-Man versus the Vulture. Every book has some type of a villain in there who usually does something a little more than trip an old lady when she goes across the street, and how that's dealt with, and the stress of those conflicts, how they're dealt with through the author and the characters to the reader. I just think those are great things and a great initiative to be proactive in teaching children how to deal with stress and feeling good about themselves as they read those books.
And you're very modest, Lisa, but I can remember being with you, particularly in the city of Trenton, when we would have the school backpack giveaways for the kids who were entering school, and through your generosity in the foundation, you made sure that every student there left with a book, including the older students who got a book on writing style, which I thought was great. And, this has been an initiative. This year I happen to be fortunate enough to be the president of the Mercer County Bar Association. Last year we did a book drive that saw about 1,000 books come into the city of Trenton. We're doing that again this year, hoping to top what we did, helping folks like Phil Sapienza out to be able to finish their Eagle Scout project, and we're talking with a couple other folks. So hopefully we'll be able to continue this and really start getting the books into the hands of the kids.
Well, I think it's so important. But, one of the things that, besides getting books to kids, now we still have a whole population of children who have access to books. But books have so much competition. Not to date all of us, but we didn't have all the things kids have now. When, we would come home from streetlights came on, you go inside, you get a shower or a bath, and then you read, because there weren't that many channels. You probably didn't have too many TVs in your house. So reading was a great form of entertainment. Now books are competing against every app and video game and things on the computer. They're glued to their phones for hours. Do you think it starts with really creating and building that love when they're young? Do you think that's...
Well, I think
it hard to teach a middle schooler to love reading?
I would say yes, but I also would say that when the children are in middle school, you say, I have the keys. I'm the adult. You can't drive.
Hope springs eternal. Here
I
it
have
is.
my wallet here. I have some money. Who wants to go to the bookstore and pick out some books? And the research indicates that children are going to be fine with that. They'll go with you. They will read, and then they'll find reading. So I think it does take a little bit of what's the word? I want to say fascism, but that's not. A little bit of moxie, authority. That's the word I was looking for. To say, hey, we're
more diplomatic.
Yeah. That's much better. Probably plays better with on television as well. But we're gonna do this and some leadership. Let's try the reading, and I think parents will find out that the children like it just as much. That's what the research indicates, and that's what I have found over the years, that kids like to go to bookstores and pick out books. That let them pick them out, help them, but let them choose something that they're interested in. As Andrew, it might be football, it might be basketball, it might be romance novels, it might be science fiction, it might be fantasy, but they'll find something they like.
And also letting them see you read, right? As a parent,
also
model
go there, pick out a book yourself, pick out the best one you want to. You guys go over to the children's section. I'm going over and pick out something that I like, James Patterson or whoever.
Okay.
I do that with my grandkids now. When we carve out some time to read, they read their books, whether it's the Paw Patrol, or my grandson loves the Lego books, we'll read together. And we have done exactly what Dr. Fazzone said, going to Barnes & Noble or a local bookstore where we go and they get to look around. You can just see the kind of wide-eyed excitement that they have from being there and being able to buy a book. And I do the same. I always try to purchase a book there, and this way they can see, wow, this is something he does too.
Yeah, exactly. I saw two grandparents in. They were looking for a book, and I had just looked at, who was that? Percy. What's the one the kids read? The Percy
Jackson.
Yeah, right. They said, where's Percy Jackson? I said, it's right there. They said, that's the new one. I said, it's an anniversary edition. Oh, okay, that's where we're getting this, dear. So it's good for grandparents to pick out books for kids.
Well, you know what? I think it's time to play Brainstorm. So, on the show, you've both been here before. We are going to discuss 8 ideas, and if they're good, we keep them. And in the tradition of brainstorming, if they're not, you get to ball them up and throw them in. Jim, I don't remember what your record is from when you've been here before, but he's 3 for 3.
I might have made one.
Okay, there you go. Okay, we'll keep a low bar. A low bar.
I like to watch
can't be disappointed. You like to watch, and he might just give them all to you. He's a spectator. Okay, idea number 1, reading is an outdated activity that takes too long.
Oh, that got to go. That has to go in the trash.
You want to have the honors?
Yeah.
There you go.
He's got the nice elbow thing
It's the arc.
going there.
It's all good. It's like he's seeing angles
exactly.
we don't see.
Thanks to Rich Giolella.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go.
Idea 2, kids need toys over books.
No.
You want to give it a shot? You need help?
Probably. Let's see. Not too
You
bad.
don't need any help.
I think you caught that one.
Idea 3, children read to as babies and small children often go on to be great readers.
Yeah, keep that one.
Very good. Idea 4, thanks to the internet, we never have to read books again. Please don't say that's true. As an author, I don't want to hear that.
Can we shred this first and then throw it in?
You know what? We can have confetti.
We can stomp on that one.
There you go. You are on fire, sir. Idea 5, despite technological advances, physical books are still the preference of many.
I agree with that.
I have a daughter who's 18 and she's in college, and her whole room is filled with books, and I kept saying, do you want to just download them? She said, that's not the same. So there are still a lot of people married to the book.
Book is a friend.
Yeah, I still need a book in my hand.
Absolutely. Idea 6, reading is a relaxing, stress-reducing activity that has many benefits.
Super.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. We're all in agreement. Number 7, once kids reach middle school, they only need to read assigned books.
Absolutely not. Okay.
There you go. We'll give you one more
Let me try to get it on my own. We'll see. Okay, we'll see. What are you going to do?
Where did it go? Did you see it?
It went out of the stadium.
We'll send the dogs out to look for that one.
Exactly.
Okay, idea 8. Pleasure readers have extensive vocabularies and become skilled conversationalists.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. Now, I would like to say to our viewers, if you are able to take the books your children have already read, and if there is an area where it's lower income or children don't have access to books, just think about showing up and donating them. Call ahead, but donate the books. And, there are so many schools that will give them out as rewards to kids.
Absolutely.
Or schools know which children in the building may be struggling and don't have access. So there's so many of us with so many books. Forget the yard sale. Give them out. Give them to the kids.
Right.
And I want to thank you both. You've been instrumental in all of our Nikki Fifth Code Read programs. You've helped put books in so many kids' hands, and I know that's going to make a big difference in their lives, so thank you both.
Our pleasure.
And I want to thank my viewers for tuning in again. Come back next time for another episode of Brainstorm.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average 4-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.